Welcome to Journey Now, a podcast about following Jesus that takes on serious issues without ever taking itself too seriously. Each week, the pastors, staff, and friends of Journey Church in Brentwood, Tennessee, gather to catch up, share life together, and laugh a little. Okay, a lot. Maybe too much. But along the way, they also explore what it really means to bring heaven to earth, share Jesus' hospitality, and live cross-shaped lives. Part Babel, part Bible, and occasionally even thoughtful and entertaining, this is Journey Now.
Yep.
Show them the good skippity paps.
So that's the beginning of this. That is welcome to the Journey Now podcast, everybody. That was Robert Gonzalez coming in hot.
Never heard of the skippity paps?
No, but did you see the reel I sent you this morning?
Oh gosh, yes.
It was so good. Did you watch it?
I've seen it. Yes.
This professor gave a speech in all Gen Alpha language,
Yeah.
and it was like this totally nerdy guy that they were not expecting, and
Yeah.
he
Killed
came
it.
totally prepared and gave an awesome speech with all Gen Alpha language.
Yeah.
And they had subtitles translating it, and it was a
I
it
read
was
the
a
subtitles.
speech on the importance of learning another language.
Yeah.
It was brilliant.
Yeah.
That's
I'll
amazing.
send it to you.
Was
Yeah.
it unironic, or was it giggles throughout?
They were shocked.
It was
They were
it was both.
It was
Wow.
cool.
Yeah,
It was cool.
it was really cool.
The way he did
Sounds
it.
like a great teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen,
Yep.
we have a special guest star today.
Thanks,
Two
guys.
special guest stars.
Oh.
Actually, one, what they call a recurring guest star in the industry.
Okay.
Hot star.
That would be Rob Gonzalez.
Yo.
Shining
And then
star.
the special guest star, the one and only Miss Taylor Epps.
Oh, stars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's.
Who's probably one of the coolest people.
I just got that
ever.
reference. It was good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ever. You've met a lot of people.
I know,
So
but you're really cool.
That's
for a
big
lot of
time
reasons.
thing.
She used to say that to me,
lot of
Taylor.
reasons.
What's
Yeah.
it like? That's why you're
But
recurring and I'm
recurring
new.
is like
That's
boring.
kind of yeah, been
They're
there,
used
done
to
that.
You're good enough on the air, but you're not going to drop any new shockers.
I have a radio face.
Yes. You do have. Gosh.
Well, you're not supposed to say that, Tim.
Well,
Yeah. That's really negative self-talk.
Yeah.
also.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
But
Let's
it
talk
sounds
about-
realistic.
So we're doing a little special
Podcast.
episode here because
yes.
Mike and what's the other guy's
Yeah,
name?
who's the
Kevin?
other
Tim's
guy?
barely here.
Who's the other guy?
Yeah.
Who cares?
Mike and Kevin.
Mike and Kevin are,
they don't come to work
we've
anymore.
We've asked them to not be here for today.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's good.
Which is good for everybody.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
Place need a break.
Yeah.
Taylor.
Hello.
I mean, we always start out with really hard questions, but we're gonna just go real simple
Yeah.
here.
Let's go deep.
Okay.
What's your deal?
First of all, you take that tone with me one
Yeah.
more time.
Yeah.
But lucky, I haven't feasted on anything but the Word of God so far today, so I'm
Right.
ready for whatever
Wow.
questions you
Oh
have.
my
I'm
gosh!
actually
You see how this is gonna go?
Talk about
real
skibbity
quick.
paps.
I know.
Total skibbity paps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yee.
It's like taking the fists. you
Yeah.
know, it's,
Sort of truth.
Sort of truth.
I mean, she showed up today with the Caleb coffee cup.
Right.
Everyone.
I'm virtue signaling. Don't take it
Total
seriously.
virtue signaling.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I have those stickers at home. I didn't even go there.
It's not even. Yeah. She just puts
I
on
just wanted
every
everyone to
drink
know. Yeah.
ever.
Yeah. I'm going to get you.
Where are you from? What shaped you?
I was born in Minnesota, but I
Okay.
said that I'm from Texas because I spent all of my formative years there, and I was viciously bullied during my time in Minnesota, and so I have chosen to willfully forget that time of my life.
how old were you when you went to Texas?
12.
Wow.
So
I mean, that's formative from 1
Yeah.
to 12. Yeah.
yeah, and then 12 to now, I guess.
Why not?
Yeah.
Why were you bullied?
I think I was the traditional, it's I was a different thing than people were used to. I know when people hear Farmington, Minnesota, they think wow, what a urban village with lots of culture. And,
I don't think I think that.
no?
Yeah,
Okay,
I
I don't
would've
know.
gathered
I
that.
just thought
Yeah.
maybe you were up on it. No, but I think then your assumption would be correct. I'm biracial, and my family lived in a cute little neighborhood. My dad's black, my mom's white, and in our public school, I think there were a few other black kids, but my sister and my sister was just always so cool. She's still the coolest person to me, but I didn't observe her having the same challenges because she kind of found her friend group. At least it looked like that to me. Now I know her experience was also different, but I just thought she was the coolest kid. She had friends, teachers loved her, and I was like the opposite of all of those things.
Is she older than you?
Yeah, she's like 18 months or 20 months. I don't know.
Yeah.
My mom would remember.
Yeah.
But she's older. And I just really struggled. I always was, I mean, the person I am now is kind of living out loud, very bold.
Which we love.
And that's why I'm not getting
One
bullied
reason
here.
why you're the coolest person I know.
Thank you.
But you were not that.
Now I was that.
Okay.
But that was different for, a K through whatever to be like, blow, here I am.
Yeah.
And you're welcome in the audio for that track, by the way.
Yeah. We're going to sample that.
Yeah, sample
that.
that.
Good.
Yeah.
And I wasn't an athlete. I'm sure I look like a super track star, but I was more of an art kid in every sense of the word. I was like a theater kid, art kid. And I don't know why. I've talked about this with my parents and my sister a lot as an adult and said, like, why did this happen? And nobody can really tell me exactly why that was my experience. They're like, you were a good kid. You had talents. You were musical, smart, fun, funny, like exuberant. For whatever reason, it was just my lot. And my sister asked me, what would you say you needed that we didn't give you, that your family didn't give you when you were in those years?
What a question.
And I said, gosh, I think we talked about it at home, what was going on, but I would have loved more time just in that conversation so that my parents and my family could be more proactive about getting in front of what was happening instead of getting the call from the principal, having to intervene regularly, getting the call when I got beat up again. And so it was being caught in that cycle of something happened to Taylor. Now we got to jump in and intervene so that it doesn't happen again.
That sucks.
And it really did suck because there was nothing I could say that was very clear and precise of like, if you just would have done this, it would have been great. And now my sister has children and she said, what could I do differently for my kids as I'm raising them to be great men in this world? And I said, just be a very active and involved parent that is with your children throughout their journey. And I don't think my parents, swooped and pooped on my journey as a kid. They didn't come in and out. They were always with me, but now we know better questions to ask. Now we know what to watch for a little more intentionally, and what to look for to be someone who assumes that things might not be all the way right in elementary school with your kid. Not to be skeptics all the time, because that's brutal and exhausting, but to just assume there are bad actors even when they're kids that might not be the greatest and most well-formed frontal lobes on legs just yet, So that was the takeaway, that it's like, my parents would have been able to see and tend to my needs a little bit better if it was a more of a with walking instead of like oh, that happened and now we have to jump in.
Reactionary.
Yeah. Definitely.
How did that experience shape like how you see the world now?
I mean, I just think everybody is
I'm just glad it wasn't me.
Yeah.
If I start there, then
I'm just glad it
possibly
wasn't
disappoint me.
Yeah. And cut.
So you really can't be disappointed when you start right at the bottom.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think this is the work of God's goodness, is that I see people without the assumption that they haven't started off as great as they might be today. And so it's like a kindness, I think. I have a lot of sensitivity to the underdog. I'm also an 8 on the Enneagram. And I can tell you a lot of those experiences gave me the sense of justice that I seek today. Also the extraordinary sense of service and responsibility I feel to serve people, to stand in tension, to be in difficult conversations and places and not create solutions. Like, I didn't get resolution. I didn't get justice as a kid. And so now my ability to not get it is something that I can leverage towards folks who desperately want it and won't see it on this side of heaven. And so it's like, what I didn't get was that witness, and now what I have to give is that witness.
Are you drawn to like a particular form of justice?
It used to be literally just throwing myself at everything that was this unjust or unjust. But
because we can't all take care of all the injustice in the world, but God tends to draw us towards a particular thing.
I thought I thought for a while that it was equity in the LGBTQ community as an ally. I've just always had a lot of friends that struggled with sexual identity, and I just was like, I guess I'm in this place for that reason, to be with here. And then I had a therapist tell me, like, you understand there are stronger advocates in this space than you, and you saying you're going to die on that hill might actually be taking the place of someone who is called to do that work in justice.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, no. Like, she got me on that one.
Yeah.
And it was kind of my aesthetic justice that I was comfortable in. Like, it looked good, it felt good, it was topical to be in that space. But as I continued just listening to the Lord to inform my steps in my life, it became more about equity in work and access to work, especially in faith spaces, and in organizations that say they proclaim the gospel and do the work of ministry, and then tend to carry and hold on to inequitable structures and processes that end up serving or benefiting a certain type of person. And so that's where I sit. And I love being in that space, but I can say now that, yeah, there are stronger advocates, but I'm a very strong advocate for justice in that space. And justice doesn't mean fairness.
Right.
Justice doesn't mean everybody gets a seat at every table and every voice is as significant to every conversation, right? Or it'd be everyone everywhere all the time.
That's an important distinction.
Yes. It's saying that I'm going to leverage privilege towards the direction of those who have value, and I can see that and I can mine for that. Doing the work of mentorship, mining for value and helping people develop it over time, and then drawing people to the table who are qualified to be in the seat.
That's awesome.
Can you give an example of that?
Yes. I have been, until the last 8 months, I've been a producer. So that's about 13 years of my career working in film and television. I spent the last 3 years at K-Love leading the video team. And in my career, if you are in the production space, you're going to be in a male-dominated field. When I was in graduate school, I realized really quickly it was like 80% women around the table to pursue leadership in production. But what I was seeing in the field was one person on every crew of 100 was a woman. And I was like, so somewhere there is a flip that's happening between the pursuit of being in production and getting the jobs that are in production. And I said, well, the best way I can control that is to be the person giving the jobs. And so that further increased my desire to become qualified so that I could advocate. And this is to me where there's a difference between a mentor and advocate. An advocate is positioned to take action and move things around, where a mentor can, purely for the sake of altruism, pour into others to help them grow for the sake of growth. And an advocate says, I'm going to slingshot you, and I might even lose a little bit of something to leverage that so that you can actually
Another
move
important distinction
into a space. And so when I started getting the roles, and I started, I mean, quite frankly, beating my male counterparts by just being the best candidate for the role, and I had a lot of favor on my life. Like, I wouldn't be in the positions that I've been in if God wasn't like, I'm going to carve this part of the valley out for you. I immediately said, God, as soon as I get anything, I'm going to give something. And so immediately I hire an incredible female production coordinator. Then as I move throughout my career, I bring those people with me, and I choose to mentor or to advocate along the way. Very recently, that has looked like, I was a woman leading, and I want to call it to a woman who's in a minority, so a woman of color leading a team of men. And as soon as I kind of pulled up to the table, I started bringing other women into the team. And to the point that sometimes from the outside in, it might look like to my own disadvantage, like hurt myself to give someone else success. When I started at K-Love, there was a woman on the team who was incredible. And I knew right away that she had so much more to give than the role she was doing in that time. And so I started asking her, how can I leverage you up and outwards? Like, it doesn't threaten me that you might leave this organization or the ministry. What would threaten our growth overall is if you stay here because you don't see that you could do more, and God might be even calling you to walk in a new path. And so kind of helped her work her way out of the team. And now she's an incredible producer for one of the prime time radio shows at K-Love.
That's awesome.
And I love that. Like my greatest success in this life will not be seen in the work I do, but the work and people that I get to work with do as a result of being my friend or working with me. So all my value for me is measured in the success of my service to others, which comes out in the action of their outpouring. What does their life look like because we interacted with each other?
That's so beautiful.
So I spent a lot of time thinking about that. And then I got to backfill that producer's role, and I brought in an incredible production manager, project manager, who I have now had the opportunity to promote 2 or 3 times in the ministry after that point. And I was talking about this with a team member this morning, and I just said, listen, when I find that the richness in the person, whether it's the potential or like the diamond mine that hasn't been exposed and seen, I'm going to stay with it, and I'm going to bring it with me as I go through my career. Like I collect those things, even the unformed stuff, the stuff that just looks like earth at this point, that we haven't, cut the Michelangelo or not the Michelangelo cutting the angel out of the sculpture. It's like I see the brick of marble and all of the possibilities it could be, because I think that's part of the gifting God's given me as a creative, to see all the potential outcomes, to see all the shapes a person could turn into as a result of just a little obedient chiseling a little bit at a time. And so I think about that all the time. All the time this is on my mind. And then I'll be in a conversation where I'm coaching a team, and that's also an incredible privilege. I do a lot of leadership coaching, team coaching, and journeys of development. And when I'm in those conversations, I also leverage strengths from other parts of the ministry or people in my world that I think might connect with them and help them grow, like connect with the group I'm coaching and help people on the team thrive or be successful. And I always represent women in traditionally male fields in my examples. It's like, what's your active microfeminism, and mine is when I give examples of, as we're growing and we're pursuing new levels in our careers, if you want to be a woman who is pastoring a church, if you want to be leading minorities and, insert group that's underrepresented, if you want to be leading those people in 10 years, what decisions do you have to make today to put yourself in that position? If you want to be a woman who is a CMO or a chief of finance, like what does that look like to begin helping develop those skills today? So that's mine. I always insert that in the conversation, because as a woman who wasn't represented in my school or my neighborhood or my church, when I was in those formative years, I truly did not think a whole lot was possible because I had never seen it modeled.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize the truth of that until I started to be a model and watch people respond to that I understood the significance of having the role models become the advocates. And so it's like, that is my hill to die on.
That's beautiful.
Long story short.
Swish.
Should we take an offering?
Yeah, I feel like an offering would be really great. Yeah, that's huge.
Would you like to make a pledge? Caleb is good at a pledge drive.
Yeah.
You'd like to call in now.
Yeah.
$20 a month. You'll get a T-shirt.
My eyes twitching.
And the church needs a new building. So
Yes. True.
Maybe.
Speaking of.
Maybe we do. Maybe
Yeah.
we don't.
we'll find out, won't we? But if you pledge now,
We'll find out.
maybe.
We'll find out. It is looking good, though. I feel like people have been really generously saying we agree.
I love that. When I
I
drove
don't
up
know.
today, I was like, I need to make my pledge. And all jokes aside, I love a pledge drive. And I love people giving because it's a way that you can immediately see God affirming
It's
things.
so
through
interesting.
gifts.
Also, what I love about it is generosity begets generosity.
Yes.
Like for sure. Like I've noticed in myself, when I see people being generous, I want to be generous because that looks like so much fun, and I've seen it in different scenarios too. Like when people show their generosity, it rubs off on other people. It's so beautiful. Not just financially, in every way. So
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100% agree with that. And another organization that I worked for, the whole point of going through the snowball and the baby steps, I'm not going to say the name, but it is all about, generosity is the goal of wealth.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's just monetary wealth. Generosity is the fruit of a rich life.
Right. Yeah.
Because I'm not precious with the things that I know that don't belong to me anyways. I'm just stewarding. And the more I give them away, the more I receive back and all of the unseen things.
Yeah. So good.
What are things at the moment that you're kind of looking at your life and going, I want to rethink how I do this?
Relationships. Relationships big time. I was married and then I was divorced. And despite it being a really difficult marriage at times, I cannot say that I just slipped and fell into that relationship. I made choices, right? I took steps to get myself there, and I made agreements and commitments, and those are really important. And I'm looking now at the patterns of my thinking and the ways of my movement that kind of went ahead of me. What beliefs did I have that made those commitments and agreements what I thought was good at that time? Because looking back on that now, and I've learned so much, I'm like, I knew then, and this wouldn't be a surprise to anybody who knows our story, but I knew then that I really struggled and I wasn't ready to get married. And yet some of my muscle memory and my reflexes continued to carry me into that relationship. And so that's something that I'm saying, God, like, I'm not trying to judge it, but I need you to reveal to me some of the things. And that's something I've been working through for like the last year. Really, I've been divorced for almost 3 years, but just really been asking God over the last year, like, what are the things? What are the thoughts? Reveal the power of my own will in my actions.
That's a good question.
And weigh it properly.
Yeah, I mean, that's the difference from triage to healing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. And I feel like I'm participating. I'm a co-heir in healing now that I wasn't before. I was like seeing it pass by me, like, and I want to grab that. It's like, being in slipstream, and I was watching it happen, but I couldn't latch on to any of the learning. And now I feel like I'm in it, and I'm like, okay. And it's fascinating to me that now that I'm in it, I actually am doing relationships different. Like, I started dating, and it's been this is only to the goodness of God. I'm not really doing anything different other than assessing my thoughts and my responses and my pacing, and inviting God actively, saying, God, you're already with me, but what does it mean for you to be present with me on this date? Like, that's as good. I'm in the car on the way there, as I'm debriefing it on the way home, not just like, God, you're here, it is going to be a great date. It's like, how do I actively engage, right? But I sense a difference in like awareness, the awareness of me to God's presence while I'm on dates, and my sensitivity to God's movement while I'm on dates. Not just like you'll come with me, you're going to be in the back seat, right? Yeah. It's like, no, right there. He's right there in it. And it's a whole other experience. And it's been maybe the most joyful season of singleness and dating that I have ever had.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we talk, I think, at some point, everybody at this table has said something about, in the last 29.5 weeks, about God is already with us. Like, we don't have to be like, okay, God, we'll wait for your presence in the room. And
I know, it's as you're talking, I'm thinking about, like, all the times that I've prayed or heard people pray for a Christ-centered relationship, which is its own thing, but then also, like, kind of dismisses the fact that Christ is already there. Yeah. And, like, maybe if we're more aware of his presence, we would treat people differently and treat ourselves differently, not just in dating relationships, but in all relationships,
Absolutely.
So it's the way we talk about things is interesting.
Yeah, my boss sent me a quote the other day that was like, the words we speak become the culture we build. And so if I am saying, God, I'm waiting on you to join me and I'm waiting for your presence, then I'm going to build a culture in my community that, like, I have to wait and create emptiness in my life so that God can fill it. But as soon as I said yes to getting on this crazy train as a believer and laying down my life, like, it wasn't a vacancy that got filled. It was a complete
It wasn't
rebuild.
A God-shaped hole?
The God-shaped hole in all of us.
It's a donut-shaped hole.
God-shaped hole by Aaron Neville. The Aaron Neville version specifically. No, and that has been another thing. Somebody, one of our incredibly brilliant and wonderful inquisitors of the gospel on Sundays, said that it was like, you became the temple. Like, it wasn't just like empty. You are the new temple, like the tabernacle, like it's you. And so it clicked for me that I wasn't a God-shaped hole that then was empty and got filled. It was, I got like toe up from the foundation and rebuilt. And then I am living and
Yeah.
living stones.
Yeah.
And so this really strange, like maybe it's the CCM world is like, maybe it's easier to write a ballad about how empty I was before God came and filled me than it is to say, I am the being filled and the filling of, and so it's all happening all at once.
Yeah.
You should write a song
All the
about
time.
Let's do it.
Yeah. We'll do it.
Well, speaking of the last 29.5 weeks,
Yep.
we finished Ephesians.
Come on, Suze.
Ephesians.
Ephesians.
Yeah. Yeah. And it feels a little strange talking about this without Mike being here.
Who?
Yeah.
Who's Mike?
Yeah.
But
was the
Suzie,
Inquisitor.
you ended it
You
I
did.
ended it.
appropriately.
With a
Grand
mic
finale.
Yeah.
drop and a curse word.
You did swear. We all heard.
At the 9 a.m.
Did
I
you work
cleaned
that
up
out?
my act for the second service.
That's good. We might have had a mass walkout if you didn't.
Yeah.
It's true.
I don't know if we
Yeah.
can handle another
I
politically
know.
divisive thing
I
right
know.
now.
What did you, because as you study, you always learn way more than you can even share. So what was like a takeaway for you?
From the whole series?
Yeah. Yeah. Or even this weekend.
Well, so it's interesting because I was thinking about this actually this morning. It was still kind of teaching me this morning. Like, so much, like, on Sunday, we closed it with Ephesians 6, which is this, Paul ends the letter with this display of what it looks like to be a church that's united in solidarity for the gospel, because of the gospel, like Taylor said, filled with the Spirit of God to go fill the earth. And to stand as in solidarity as a representation to the faithfulness of Christ and the victory of Christ, right? And so all this talk about oneness, I was reading some stuff for a class that I'm taking on differentiation and individualism and togetherness, and the balance that we have to have in our relationships to be our differentiated self, but then also together. And it was another reminder of how like unity does not mean uniformity. We don't lose our sense of self. We don't lose our sense of like Journey Church is about something very different than Church of the City. They're both really good things, but they're focusing on, particularly like right now, they're focusing on orphans and foster care, and they're so good at that. And that's not our focus. Our focus is hospitality, and both are necessary, but we're not going to like overrun ourselves pursuing this like need to be about adoption and foster care because we think we're supposed to do that, because they're already doing that, but we can be together and distinct at the same time, you know? And so it just was it was just an interesting thing to think about. So for me, so much of it came down to learning how to be in solidarity with God's people, and also being able to tell the truth about things when I don't think we're representing him well, and yet also doing it in such a way that doesn't dehumanize other people. And like, it's for me in particular, in this moment in time, that has been the biggest challenge for me, is to be part of who we are in Christ without dehumanizing people who I think are not doing it well. You know, because then I'm just like the thing I hate. You know, but like what Taylor was saying, I so appreciate the language that Paul uses that I think has been, at least in my formation, was diminished in terms of who we are already called to be, and how we are already called to be moving about in the world. And that that calling has been given and empowered by Christ and his Spirit, and we need to make ourselves available to that, you know, and that the stands that we take and the struggles that we wage and we're in are not of flesh and blood, but they're these like active forms of resistance that are life-giving and hope-giving to people. And that's what I want to be about. That's what I want us to be about. And it really takes a lot more intentionality when you live in a world that is currently marked by outrage and hostility.
Okay, so so in a world marked by outrage and hostility, you see your role as, or Ephesians is inviting us to see our role as
peacemakers, and also purveyors of justice. And
how do those two?
I was going to ask that. It seems like such an interesting balance between like unity and correction or truth telling, because they seem, depending on who you're talking to, and it can be conflicting. It feels like.
Right. But when you're like, what we've learned about like relationships, like if you tell the truth in relationships, even if it stirs up conflict, it brings intimacy, greater intimacy. But how you go about telling the truth and how you go about resolving that and coming to a place of agreement or disagreement makes all the difference.
And what's really important, I love that you just said it, was relationships come first.
Yeah.
Like we have to know the people that we're talking to in order to like have a seat at the table, I think.
Yeah.
And oftentimes we don't know people that we're talking to, and just shouting.
Right.
Like in hopes, I don't even know what the hope is when we do that. Because it's like, it doesn't make any sense. People don't get changed by that. It's the people on Facebook that are all yelling at each other. It's like, I know part of that is just like the injustice that people feel on both sides. But I think also like, it doesn't actually do anything. Right? We forget the importance of relationship.
Right.
The importance of having some sort of relational equity first to first kind of be our foundation as we conversate about these things. Yeah. But it's super difficult because I was thinking about, you said a phrase on Sunday, and I've heard it before, but I love the way you said it. It's like, we don't fight with people, we fight for people. And it's like, I love this idea and I love everything that it represents. And also like, it's really hard to do, like,
how do you fight for people?
And not fight against others, right? Because like there are people that I want to fight for, but part of the reason I want to fight for is because there's opposition towards those groups or those people that make me really angry, right? That feel like evil in the world, and feel like they should be corrected, right? As they go against the unity of the body. And I'm like, but I don't know what my role is because I don't necessarily have the relational equity to say those things.
Well, I think that Paul even gives a perfect example of that in the book of Acts when he confronts Peter in front of the, like he had a relationship with Peter and he was very direct and he was honest with Peter and he called Peter out because Peter was doing something that was against the unity of the whole body. Like he was saying he was about something and then doing something different. He hadn't always been like that, but he had slipped into that, And so Paul very honestly talks to him about it and they as a body, they had a whole conversation about that. But there, like you said, there was relationship and there was place at the table. And, I think that's the thing is like, that's why I asked Taylor, like, what's the area of justice that you feel drawn to? Because we can't all fix everything, and the question came up even, I think in the 9 o'clock, was it? When Sherwin said like, I'm trying to be all these things that I'm supposed to be and how am I supposed to be that? And I think that's also a very different question. And maybe you can speak to this coming from a woman of color, right? Yeah. So it's just like, and my response was that you just can't. Yeah. Like, and I'm not saying stop trying to be all that God's called you to be, but also accept the fact that there's no way any of us can be that perfectly, because that's who Jesus was. We're supposed to emulate him and also realize that as much as we are to be like him, we are not him. And so, it's hard, and there's not one place in the Bible that says it's not going to be hard.
Yeah. I feel like something that especially because I was kind of in the wrong seat on my justice train for a little bit,
Right.
that I felt like I was easily weaponized for a purpose that I wasn't anointed to be a tool to help move forward. And so it's like, if I'm not operating in what God is developing in me, and like we don't always know, like we're all figuring that out, but if I'm not operating in that with awareness, then I can become a weapon for pretty much anything.
Right.
Like a lot of folks see that in me, like, oh, we like you, like you'll stand up for injustice, and they'll weaponize some of my strengths because like I will negotiate, I will go after whatever I'm going after. But I want to go after the things of God, because when I'm working within what God has anointed me to stand for, then my whatever I have becomes a tool that helps build something.
Yeah.
Not a weapon that cuts down things. And so it's like, I know that there is also a righteous purpose for weapons, and that's part of the Bible and our history. But I see whatever gifting I have, it's not everything for everyone. It's like one or two things that I'm just uniquely maybe anointed for in a season, or that I'm training for in an off season, but in the right context that only God knows and sets me up for, and that I'm sensitive to, and I hope I follow the pull in the right direction, that then I can see progress differently, because I'm viewed as more of a tool in that journey. And then I know, like, the highest areas of frustration for me are when I feel like I'm being weaponized, and I even like it, because my flesh is like, this is what I was made to do, and I feel that power, and I'm like, ooh, that's me, that's all me.
Danger.
Yeah, big fat danger. But a tool takes a little more precise wielding. You know, it's like carpentry tools. It's like the whittler versus the what's the opposite of whittling? We got any woodworkers in here?
Like a saw. Carving.
Yeah.
Shaving.
So whittling is
chainsaw.
Chainsaw. Yeah, it can be a large
Table saw?
tool
Skill
for
saw?
whittling, but it's like the difference. The whittler makes anything out of something, where they're just whittling away.
Yeah.
And the carving is shaping a specific something for a purpose.
Yeah.
And I don't want to just be a whittler, just making any old tool that ends up with a sharp, sticky, like a sharp point at the end that then can jab in things. That makes me feel powerful, but it's not precise.
Yeah.
And it ultimately, it can't be something that's handed off to someone else to help continue a purpose of goodness or justice. And for me, it's also getting away from trying to fix all the injustice and to shift towards how can I create spaces for justice.
That's what when you talked about mentoring, that's what that said to me, it wasn't about what am I against. It was like, how am I going to actually be a blessing, not be a cursor in the world? Because that can really turn into the fighting all the people that we disagree with. Is a lot. I mean, I know there's time and place, I'm sure, but like that's a lot of cursing of darkness versus blessing things and being the one like bringing the wholeness and the fullness that we're apparently full with already. We're just waking up to it. I was just with a group of people in Boston that were that. They part of the reason why this group was together was that they were so apolitical. Like they all have thoughts, but their work is so outside of the political realm that they're just blessers of the land. I mean, that's who they are. And that's why they were kind of brought together. And I was just watching these people going, I want to be that.
Yeah.
It's that. It's like that the other stuff can keep frazzling us and it's worth looking at. But if we're just focused on that and the mentoring, that's so beautiful. And the fullness bearers. Yeah. That's huge. And it's so hard to do when injustice also needs to be called out.
Yes.
And things that are just freaking wrong need to be called out. At least just, hey, let's have a conversation about this. Yeah. But anyways, that's what I took from that. That's like really mature, even for an Enneagram 8. That there's a lot of stuff that you have been shaped and are being shaped into right now. That's really beautiful, Taylor.
Yeah.
Like those are really some of my favorite humans are really healthy 8s that have asked the question, "What's it like on the other side of me?" And
that was a tough answer when I started asking that question.
Totally. And it's a tough reckoning.
Yeah, I'm like, am I okay with that? Am I okay with what I'm fear when I am entering the room? When people see me on the meeting invite, they're like, hide your children. You know, get your pitchforks. Yeah. And I'm like, that's right. And then I started I was like, do I really want to wear that?
Yeah.
Like that? Badge of honor that it isn't?
Yeah. It's Taylor, that is so beautiful. I mean,
Is
what
there
a gift.
Was there a moment or a time or a season where that changed for you, where you became less of a chainsaw, more of a whittler?
That's a great question.
That is a great question.
I just wanted to say whittler again.
Swish.
Whittling. Why would I whittle what way? Gosh. I mean, just being crushed in life and my response to that, you know, I was like, am I going to keep doing what I've always done and expect a different result?
How'd you come to that?
Like I'm going to say the emptying of me, but I mean my will. And I had a pastor who was awesome. And I don't remember what he was talking about in his whole message. He was great though, but I don't remember the message. But what he said in the message that has stuck with me, and it's been like 6 years since I heard this, and it said, you got to ask God to properly, or to reveal to you the proper weight of your will in your life. And when he did that, it like snatched me. I clutched my pearls.
So say that again.
You have to ask God to reveal to you the weight of your will in your life. Like, how much is your will really? We say, God, not my will, but your will be done. And then I'm like, sounds a lot like my voice, but I'm calling it God's will. And I realized, I mean, it was like in a split second, I saw my whole life in every direction. And I prayed prayers where God's will would be the thing playing out in my life. And then I took steps that were 100% my will playing out in my life. And then the further I got away from my intent and my outcome, the more strain and stress I felt in my experience. And so I'm like, God, your will, not my will, be done. And then I'm actively engaging in righteous anger that I'm self-justifying. I am creating my own priorities. I am pursuing my own types of relationship. I am, weighing and measuring what I think sin is and what is okay and what is not okay. And the more and more I engage in those patterns, I'm just getting crushed by my life. Like, God, why do I keep doing the things I know I shouldn't do, but I can't stop doing? And, my marriage was failing and I was a part of that failure. My relationships were not working. My relationships with my family weren't thriving. Struggling at work, just feeling like sick in my soul. And I realized that was my will be done. I created a sickness that then I blamed God's will for in my life. And so when I got real about the great physician, Rapha, in my life, it started to change, because I literally said, open me up, God, like, here I am. And that was like a daily request. A brutal one to make. Like, it's not a prayer you just ask God to come in and like scramble you. But I was desperate because I was so sick in my soul. And I knew that because of my dependency on other things like alcohol, distraction, anything to help me cope that would keep me a little bit further from myself and the source of my sickness. And that was also something that came up in my marriage, right? Just put pressure on what was already there. Not a whole lot of new material. It was already, everything that I brought to the table was right in front of me, And so that just came out. And I was just like, God, I really want to know you to my own demise, if that's what it is. And I learned the lesson of like, my life is truly nothing, taking it back to Acts, like meaningless if I am not doing the work of exemplifying your kingdom and your goodness. And I'm still learning that lesson. My soul is still sick, I'm still broken. There is no perfection. My biblical perspective is like, we need Jesus still, even after we get him for the first time. And
we just actually recognize that we need him more.
And that's tough. When I was living in the distraction era, which was most of my life, I was good with snacks, and now I want the real thing. I want the meat. I want the potatoes. I want the discomfort of digestion that sometimes being in the word means.
Heartburn.
The heartburn.
Diarrhea.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Pepto-Bismol. I feel
Difficulty
like the theme
breathing,
song was about
difficulty
to kick
swallowing,
in.
nausea, cold sweats, hot sweats, numb lips.
This portion of Journey Now
Tickling.
podcast is brought to you by
Everything in the small print. And it could kill you.
Yes.
And you need to know that.
So true.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. The digestion.
of it.
That's good.
That's really
It was
good.
real uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I'm much more, and I think my tolerance for pain is pretty high. I mean, going through the things I went through as a kid, just set me up to be okay with like not being okay. I mean, to the extent where I'm like 9 years old. The boys that lived across the street from me invite me to come to the driveway. All I wanted to do was like play basketball with all the guys on my block were my age. Everybody else was like my sister's age or younger, so I had all these guys. And I was like, I'm just gonna do sports. I told you I wasn't an athlete, but I was gonna do sports. And so they invite me over to play ball, and they're like, yo, like this is Jacob's batting, with the batting helmet, sports, his batting hat, and. I was like, okay, cool. And they're like, do you want to put it on? Like, he bats at school. And I was like, no, like be cool. But yeah, I do want to put that on. And they were like, cool. Well, you can play basketball with us. You can play catch with us, but like, go ahead and put on his helmet. And I was like, okay. I see my sister off in the distance on my driveway, and she's like perked up, and she starts kind of hastening her way to me. And I'm like, hey, girl. And I just go on about my business. And I'm like, yeah, give me that batting hat. Like, let's do this. And they all come up at the same time, push it down on my head. As my sister's like, no. And she sees this whole thing playing out. Well, when the helmet hits my head, I feel wetness. Oh. And they have all spit in the batting helmet. And that was the sole purpose of them inviting me over to play, was to humiliate me. And my sister didn't know what it was, but she knew something wasn't right. And she saw the exchange, and she'd been my sister long enough to know, like, this isn't going to be good. Mm-hmm. These boys have no business hanging out with my little sister. Mm-hmm. Because they had never been nice. But I thought today would be the day that I would see the change. Yeah. The turning point would happen. It didn't happen. And I hope none of them got into college. I think they're fine, probably. God is good. But that happened, and it's those kinds of things where I don't tell that story with the grief of still being in that moment, because I've given myself, God has given me today what little me didn't get then. I can hold myself in that and be like, dude, that sucked. And now I have the awareness, but it also gave me the capacity. And so there are a lot of stories like that in my life that now I have the space to carry that agony that I would not have had otherwise. Yeah. And so it's like the sickness of my soul was another agony that I had to carry. I put the batting helmet on my own head and held it there as an act of resistance against God's goodness. Mm-hmm. And so when I could take that off and I could see it all for what it was, ew, and like ick. And yeah, a lot of people did things to me, and I could choose to be a victim, or maybe I just was a victim. I was like, there's some things where I'm like, I wasn't choosing a victim mindset at 9, right? Yeah. I just was a victim of that assault. Yeah. And now I'm like, okay, well, if I can just, it can all be laid bare, and I can see the other shoe drop on God's goodness. Like, that was a really hard thing, but now I have seen how I've used that story. Even right now, I'm telling that story, and who knows why that's coming out of my mouth, but God does. But I can use that and tell a story of God's goodness and faithfulness on the other side of now being able to protect children when I see things creep up that look a little sus and probably are. When I can protect people, when I can intervene. Like, I will be someone as an 8. This is kind of I like it. It's like my superpower, that I have no fear to jump in the middle of a fight and like cover someone. None whatsoever. I will jump on the grenade. I will do that. But it's because it had to blow up on me at some point.
And that is common for 8s, from what I understand. Yeah. Is that experience that makes you, like the healthy 8s, that's what makes you like an advocate and a protector. And
instead of just a challenger and a weapon.
Yeah. So good.
So that's my turning point. It happened through a lot of grueling, like being a mortar and pestle, and I was like the grains getting ground up into something better. Yeah. And that's always still happening in my life, I think. But
Taylor, thank you so much.
It's been a delight to have you with us.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Journey Now. If for some bizarre reason you liked it, help us spread the word by leaving a review and sharing it on your socials. Journey Now is a production of Journey Church in Brentwood, Tennessee. Edwin Rivera III produces the show and fixes all the guest slurping, gum chewing, coughing, and other annoying sounds. Randy Hansen provides technical assistance, even though he denies it. Grant Opperman edits Journey Now and intervenes when necessary to tell the crew that you can't say that. Special shout out to dear listener Brad Erie and dear YouTube watcher Seth Erie. If there's anyone else who makes it through each week, we're so sorry, and thanks to you too.